Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to our first Curriculum and Instruction Leaders Meeting of the 22-23 school year. I'm very happy that you're here in person with us. This camera right over here is shooting the room, so we have friends that are online, and they are watching the stream of this meeting from their computers. So just a little bit of logistics, because we do have a hybrid meeting happening. In person, we need you to be able to, if you're going to speak, that you use a microphone. So Steve, right over there, has this wonderful box that you can speak into. And we need that to happen so that the people that are watching the live stream can hear what you're saying. So if we don't talk into a microphone, they can't hear that. And then those of you that are at in your office or wherever you are accessing the meeting, if you go scroll down to the bottom of the live stream page, there's a little tab called Questions. And if you click on that, that is going to open a chat box. And in that box, you can talk to your colleagues that are also on the live stream, or you're also able to ask questions. So Dr. Erin Dare, who is going to be moderating the chat, if a question comes up that you would like to ask one of our presenters as they're moving forward with the meeting, then she will be able to read that and bring it back to the group. Okay, so for those of you that don't know me, I am Dr. Shannon Baker. I'm the Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction here at the county office. And we have a really great meeting for you today. We have 4 separate topics that we're going to be talking about. Dr. Chin will be introducing our new Executive Director of Equity, and she's going to be presenting a presentation on student agency and voice. I'm going to toe dip us into the term learning acceleration, which we're going to talk about all this year. Steve Green is here to talk about LCAP and accountability, and Dr. Dare will also be talking about an early educator grant. So that's what's going to take us through our time together this afternoon. And again, those of you that are here, thank you for being here, and those of you that are watching us on our live stream, thank you for being here as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Chen, who's going to speak to us, introduce some people, and welcome us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, this is awkward. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see half of you here, and I think half of the other people are on the live stream. And I just wanted to take a couple of minutes. I connected with some of you as you came in this afternoon. I see a lot of new faces. That's exciting. Hopefully you guys think it's exciting too, right? Hopefully you're not too tired already. Some of you I know are going on break in a week. Mariana came in and she had a big smile on her face and she said, I'm going on vacation. Great, lucky. Unfortunately, that's not the case for a lot of us, but I understand it's a exciting beginning of the year for people, and with the start of the new year, you get tired because kids come in and they haven't been in for quite some time, and so anyway, it's great to see people today. I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce some new people to you so that you can connect their names with their faces. Shannon introduced herself, and she introduced herself as the Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction. She got a promotion just about a month ago. So she used to be our Senior Director, now she's our Executive Director, and Erin just went backstage, and she's our new Senior Director, so when she comes back out, I'll introduce her to you. Oh, here she comes. Erin Dare is our new Senior Director of Family and Student Success. Isn't that a great title? And next to Erin is our new Executive Director of Equity, Talisa Sullivan. And she's going to be sharing some topics with you, or some information with you in just a little bit. I think most of you know our Executive Director of our MEGA department, Olympia Kirikides, who's sitting next to Talisa. And then you guys, sure, and if you guys want to look at the camera so people can see your faces. Isela Jacobo is our new Senior Director of MEGA. She just walked out. She had to run to another meeting, but you will hear her name, if not, see her name in emails. And then on this side of the room, we have a new executive director of early education, Rita Pillay. And so Rita's here. It sounds like, ooh, exciting. That's great. Fan club, that's awesome. We also have our senior director of migrant education, Elisa Ayala. We have our executive director of learning and leadership, Dan Wolfson. And then we have our senior director of accountability and assessment, Steve Green. And we have other people. We have Tony and John and Paige and Julie, and I think that's it. So again, just wanted to connect you with new faces so that you know who they are. We're all here to support you and serve you in any way that we can. I want you guys to know that wholeheartedly we care about what happens in your schools and your districts. So anytime, and I think those of you who've been around for a while know that you can just pick up the phone and call one of us, and we will respond in a quick manner and hopefully in a manner that serves your needs. So I'm gonna go ahead and hand this back over to Shannon.
Thank you, Dr. Chin. Yes, please, yes. It's been a long time. We haven't been in person. Thank you very much. Okay, so our first presentation today, I think this is really great because you're going to get to meet this amazing person who is on our team now. Dr. Talisa Sullivan is our new Executive Director of Equity, and she's going to come up here and share some of her thinking and some learning for us around student agency and voice when we think about equity. So this will be a great introduction not only to her, but to her thinking around the topic. So we're so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think you guys think that this is the front, right? This is the front. But this might be the front. And then the front might be over here. So we're going to engage today. So there is no front. So I just want you all to know that your eyes might get tired, your heads might spin, but we're going to engage. Thank you so much. I'm going to be multitasking. But we're going to engage, and you'll see my multitasking skills. So welcome everybody. I'm super excited to be here in person. We're just going to get started a little bit, and I will share with you that I've been here for about 2 weeks now. So a lot of the information that we have definitely is information that I have in here, but a lot of the information is already developed by the team that is amazing here in San Diego, and we just share our expertise together to put together some information just to talk to you about student agency, and we're going to probably speak a teeny bit about ethnic studies just to kind of get you a little bit curious, and then if you'll have questions, you'll be able to ask us questions later. So again, I'm Talisa, and just going to start off a little bit by talking about the blueprint, the equity blueprint for action. Okay, so we're gonna definitely, all of our work here in San Diego County Office of Education is aligned directly to the blueprint. So everything that we present, anytime we engage with you all, we will be engaging with you through the blueprint. And so I don't have a link for you today because usually during the virtual sessions, I can be like, drop the link in the chat. But we can make sure that you guys get, if you want, once we're done with this, we'll make sure we send you something to ensure that that you have a link. And if we drop it in the chat for the people in the Zoom, you guys will get the link because it's in the, it's actually in the notes section, the link to the blueprint. And so I think I heard, Shannon, I think I might have heard you say that there's a way for the people here in the room to engage with the people in the chat. Is that right? Oh, okay, I thought it was the people here. Oh, no, sorry. I almost had the link for y'all. Sorry, I almost had it. But we'll make sure you all get it so that you can have the blueprint for action as well. So again, everything is aligned to the blueprint for action. So we're gonna get started a little bit. But the way we're gonna start is we're gonna start with ways of being. We're gonna start with ways that we wanna be in the space together. So I would love for one of my colleagues, and this is where Steve Green comes in with the blue box, for one of my amazing colleagues to read for us the ways we want to be here in this space together. Can I get a volunteer? Somebody who's like, I was quiet for too long, it's time to start talking. Dr. Layla. So she's going to read for us the ways we're going to be in this space together.
We acknowledge one another as equals, We try to stay curious about each other. We recognize that we need each other's help to become better listeners. We slow down so we have time to think and reflect. We remember that conversation is the natural way humans think together. We expect it to be messy at times.
So I'm going to tell you a few things that are going to happen today, for sure, for me. This is going to be messy. The other thing that's going to happen is I'm going to slow down. Because I do often talk fast, and what happens is people are like, what is she trying to say? What did she say? What did she say? So I'll tell you that there's been some times where I've been in some meetings and everything, and I'll have like a really amazing colleague that'll be like. So if I see that in the audience today, then what I'm going to do is slow down. Okay? So you guys are welcome to kind of give me that little signal. When we talk about things being messy, as we go through some of the work that we do, it's not always clean. And I like to give an analogy. And that analogy that I give is about a closet. And everybody in here has a closet of some sort. Even if it's like a makeshift closet, you have a closet. And when you get ready to clean that closet, it's like you pull everything out, and it's all over the place. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is a mess. But the reality is you go to start to pull it back together, and it's like it's only a mess for a moment, and then when you start to pull everything together and put it back in the closet, now you've cleaned the closet, and it kind of looks messy at first, but it's really getting better. And so that's how our work is going to be. Maybe not today, but as we go deeper in some of the topics, the work gets a little messy. So this is going to be the invitation to a necessary space, and this is where Mr. Green will come in again with our blue box. And I'd love to get another amazing colleague to read our necessary space. Brave colleague, a brave one. I got a brave colleague over there. Thank you, Lisa.
Invitation to Necessary Space, adapted from Beth Strano. There is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and have caused wounds. This space seeks to turn down the volume of the world outside and amplify voices that have to fight to be heard elsewhere. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our space together, and we will work on it side by side.
Thank you. And as we think about that really fast, we're going to leave it up for a moment because I'd love for you, and for those of you that are in the chat, I'd love for you to talk about this in the chat together. But everyone else, I'd love for you to take a moment. We're just going to think about it for a moment and find out, how do you need to experience this space that we have together that may not necessarily be perfect, but it's our space? How do you want to feel? How do you want to be seen in this space? How do you want to engage in this space? What do you need for this space? If you can think about that for a moment, just think, what do you need in this space as we get ready to engage a little bit in student voice, which sometimes gets a little bit messy because we're not sure exactly how we're supposed to hear it. What do you need? As I see people thinking, I gotta tell you guys, I have horrible wait time, but I'm gonna try to wait to give you a moment to think about what you need in this necessary space that may not necessarily be safe, but where we wanna try to create that opportunity. What do you need? Okay. If you're a writer and you need to jot it down, please do. If you're not, no worries, just hold it in your head on what you need in this necessary space. Okay. And then in just a moment, I'm gonna have you talk for probably about 2 minutes, because you're gonna only talk to the person across from you or the people. And you're gonna talk about how are you gonna respond if you don't get what you need in this space. So first, you're talking about, what do you need in our necessary space as we engage in student voice? And how will you respond? How will you respond? I will respond by kicking no, I'm just joking. How will you respond in this space if you don't get what you need? I'm gonna take 2 minutes for that. Go ahead and talk to your neighbor. For those of you that are in the chat, if you can put in the chat, how are you going to respond if you don't get what you need in this necessary space? So you're going to put in the chat, how are you going to respond if you don't get what you need in this necessary space? I love when the chatter comes to a close naturally. It hasn't even been 2 minutes yet, and people are like, I'm done. Take your final 30 seconds. And when you've finished, I'll see eyes up here. And if you're still chatting, please continue. You got about 30 seconds. Please continue if you're still chatting. But eyes up here when you're done. Thank y'all. I see y'all. Beautiful ladies. I see you ladies back there. Thank you. I love this group. The people in the chat are probably still chatting, but if they're all done, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll take one share out, someone who's burning, who has to say, this is what I need in this space. If this doesn't happen, this is how I'm going to respond. Anyone want to share? We have our mic coming around. I love that mic. I was like counting the tables. I was like, what am I going to do with this room? I can already see some things.
I am looking forward to coming into the space to learn and meet new people. So I joined Lemon Grove in the peak of the pandemic in 2020. So this meeting being in person, I was really looking forward to coming and just getting to know all of you. So if we don't have opportunities to interact during the meeting, if I come up to you at random and introduce myself, that's why. So just looking to connect and learn and grow from others.
Thank you. Thank you. So Marianne needs in this necessary space to meet people. That's what she says. And I'm wondering, I'm going to guess what's going to happen if she doesn't meet people naturally. She's going to come right up to you and be like, hey, this is who I am. Right? So that's beautiful. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Anyone else burning before we move forward? Burning, like I got to talk. See, that would be me. I'd be like, I got to talk. But I have the mic, so I'll talk the whole time. So. Okay, so I want to talk to y'all a little bit about a land acknowledgement. And so with San Diego County Office of Education, we like to do a land acknowledgement because we want to acknowledge the land that we occupy. And we want to acknowledge this land because this is land that did not originally belong to us. And for those of us that are stewards on the land now, we want to be able to take care of the land as the indigenous people would have taken care of the land. So here, it just talks about, we want to take a moment to honor the ancestral grounds that we work on, that we collectively gather upon, and support the resilience and strength that all of our indigenous people have shown worldwide. Now, we are currently on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay people. We are grateful and appreciative to the indigenous people of the traditional caretakers of the land for the use of their land, the work, the study, and to learn. So we're gonna, anytime we enter into a space together, we want to be able to acknowledge the land. And as we move forward, we will talk more about, maybe not today, but on another day, we'll talk more about land acknowledgements. So we wanted to really acknowledge the land that we're on today. Now we dig a little into the Equity Blueprint for Action. And so I wanted to show you the 4 themes for the Equity Blueprint for Action. And actually there's kind of a 5th theme that we'll get into a little bit later, and it's socially conscious leadership. But it's outlined based on asset-based systems, culturally and linguistically responsive instruction, family and community voice, and student agency and voice. And today we're gonna really focus on the student agency and voice and the culturally and linguistically responsive instruction. That's what we're gonna focus on a little bit today. So here in the socially conscious leadership, I'm just gonna read this to you all. And as I read this to you, I want you to find what words pop out for you. Socially conscious leaders serve, inspire, and empower through their own examples. They explore their own intersecting identities analyze their mindsets, and hone their skills. They seek to create equity-centered asset-based systems by implementing and sustaining positive changes that benefit those they serve. They focus their efforts on creating equitable access with consistently strong outcomes for all students, paying special attention to the needs of historically marginalized populations. I'd love you to take a moment to just kind of look that over again, and in a moment you're gonna turn and chat to talk about which descriptors you can identify that are resonating with you on this afternoon about socially conscious leadership. We wanna try to push ourselves into socially conscious leaderships even more so than we are now. So we're already engaged in that process, and sometimes some of those of us that are socially conscious leaders, this is who we are, this is what we do, and sometimes it's on purpose, and other times it's not. So how are we doing this intentionally? So turn and chat, which descriptors have you identified? And there's another question for you on there. Which of the descriptors above do you believe are most impactful in creating sustainable shifts towards improving the conditions for equitable outcomes for all students? So 2 things. 1, you're gonna look at the indicators. 2, you're gonna find out, you're gonna look about which of the descriptors are you most identifying for the equitable outcomes for all students. So take about 2 minutes to turn and talk to your neighbor, and if you haven't already introduced yourself, actually, why don't we do this? We've been sitting for about an hour. Why don't we get up? This is for Mary Ann, y'all. Why don't we get up and have an opportunity to speak to somebody we haven't spoke to today that we don't know already? Find a partner that you don't already know. Go to that partner in just a moment and talk about the descriptors that you've identified here in socially conscious leaderships and which ones do you believe are the most impactful. So go ahead and go now. We'll take about 3 minutes. I need Mary Ann to have a little bit more time with her people. You're good. You're welcome to hang out with us. Have a good day. Thank you. Okay, take about 30 more seconds. And before you leave back to your seat, thank your partner. People in the chat, you're looking at what descriptors have you identified in the socially conscious leadership, and which of the descriptors above do you believe are impactful for creating sustainable shifts towards improving the conditions for equitable outcomes? So please respond to that in the chat. And as you're heading back to your seats, thank your partner. If you have a business card, exchange that too. Thank you, ladies, for heading back. Final thoughts? And you're welcome to have your seat once you get back to your seats. Thank you, ladies. I see that you've done with your conversation. And we're back in 5. Final thoughts? Final thoughts? In 4, thank you. Thank you. So what stood out? What descriptors have you identified? And I see you can see the descriptors. And then what descriptors above do we believe are most impactful for sustaining equity for all students? What have you identified? And what are we looking at for sustainability for all students? Anyone? We got our blue box coming.
At first I was writing down all the verbs, I was doing all that, and then you finish the sentence, historically marginalized populations, and I went back to analyze their mindsets. And I think we really have to have the leaders that are gonna look at their mindsets and just recognize the facts. And I just think that's the reality of the situation. You gotta start with the reality, you gotta start with the facts, and just own it.
Thank you. And that's where the messy part comes in sometimes, because when we start analyzing our own mindsets and we start thinking about our biases, we start to kind of get a little bit afraid, because there have been people that have said, I don't have biases. I'm not biased. No, I love all kids. I mean, we know you love all kids, but you still have a bias, right? And so when you do, acknowledging that, and the problem comes in when people believe that having biases makes you a bad person. That's when the problem comes in, because you're like, no, I don't have a bias, because bad people have biases. No, good people have biases. I have biases. I'm not afraid to share those biases, because that's what helps me interrupt them, and that's what helps me to help students that are historically and traditionally marginalized, because I interrupt those biases every day, all day long, and I'm a good person, and so are you, even with your biases. Sorry. Okay. Anyone else want to speak out for us? Anyone else want to speak out from what they see and what they hear here? This is really deep. This is important to get to our socially conscious leadership. What else is standing out for you? And as I told you guys, I have horrible wait time. And so as we're going over, I'll say some things that stood out for me as the inspire, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Rita?
I focused in on the asset-based systems because in education for so long, we've always looked at where we fall short or where students fall short, and every student brings something to the table, and that makes me think of equitable access and building those relationships with students. And you have to build it by understanding what they bring to the table and all the assets that they have, and we build upon that rather than looking at where they fall short. And I think that asset-based system, that just stood out to me.
Thank you, Rita, and that's one of our themes, and that's also one of our themes too, right? And so as we talk about the themes that are in the Equity Blueprint for Action, that stands out because it's one of our themes, and it's one of the things that we really want to focus in on. But when we talk about asset-based systems for students, as leaders, we have to think about our adults also. Sometimes we go in and we want to throw the brick at them. You're out of here because you suck, right? No, we have to also think about asset-based systems for our adults as well. So I want to point that out. So thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, so if I had one more, I will go with that. Otherwise, I'm moving on. So if there's someone that's burning, like I really need to say this because it's really poking at me. So as we move forward, I'll say a few things that stand out for me as inspire and empower. Those stand out for me too. And so as an equity, what I like to call alchemist, I want to inspire and empower so that we can get to those asset-based systems, the equity-minded leadership, and also so that we can look to our historically and traditionally marginalized. And I just kind of added that word because historically, yes, if we get to our historically marginalized student groups, we're going to cover all bases because those are the students that are being marginalized the most. When we get to our traditionally marginalized student groups as well, because we have some students that may not have been historically marginalized, but they have been traditionally marginalized. So we want to make sure that we are covering all of our students that are in those marginalized groups. So thank you for sharing. Thank you all for sharing. Okay, so I'm not going to go deep into these, but these are our our themes. I'm just going to cover the bases, and this will be something at another time. You can reach out to us if you want us to come deeper into your schools or your districts, but the asset-based system is one of our themes, and I just want you to hear a few student voices, just a few student voices, and then we'll move forward. So one of our students in San Diego County Office of Ed said, well, actually in San Diego County, said teachers have a huge impact in making me feel more comfortable with who I am by acknowledging and celebrating my cultural differences and ethnicity. They want to be celebrated, is what they're saying. And sometimes we forget. And so this is a reminder. For culturally and linguistically responsive instruction, a San Diego County student said, I'm frustrated and tired of learning the same old history lessons. Man, let's learn the facts. That's what they said. Let's learn the facts. Tell me the truth, is what they're saying. And so another one of our themes is family and community voice and student agency and voice. And I'm going to read what the student said under student agency and voice. The student says, in order for educators to really value our experiences as a Black learner, they have to learn how to value our experience as Black people first. And our students are saying this. And if our students are saying that my experiences are not valid, then we have to figure out, how do we validate the experience of our students that are reaching out to us to say, teach me, I want to learn. So I have this video for you, and we're going to talk a little bit about the power of relationships. And many of you have seen Rita Pierson. So in just a moment, we're going to have an opportunity to turn and talk again. And so I'm not going to have us get up unless you want to. So this next time, after we watch the video, you will have the option to get up, find someone new, or to kind of sit. If you're at a table by yourself, you're going to want to find a friend next to you. But watch this video, and then we'll talk in just a moment.
We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class. Because I am the best teacher and you are the best students, they put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? And I gave him a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in her desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stink. Years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
I really love Rita Pierson. She really speaks it. And there's something else that she says, and it's not in this video, and she said, kids don't learn from people they don't like. And so I'm gonna add something to that. Adults also don't learn from people they don't like. And actually, they won't even take direction. They'll be like, she crazy, right? So we wanna make sure that we are catering to our educators as we are to our students. But what I'd love for us to do, when I find the clicker on the next slide, is we're gonna turn to, either turn or you can get up and move around if you'd like. And we're gonna talk about what's coming up for you in this video. How do you connect what Rita Pearson said in the video to the role that you're in, and how does that resonate? I'm trying to remember. Thank you. My clicker got away. I told you guys I'm not a multitasker. So what is the video bringing up for you, and what implications does this have in your role? What is that bringing up for you? How do you connect that with not only students, but when I'm speaking to educators in this forum, we're also talking about adults. So you have two roles. You got to make sure that you're doing what's right for students and for the adults. So what's coming up for you from the video? And we're going to take about 3 minutes for this. And you're either turning and talking, or you're standing and you're talking with someone else.
Something that can make you do wrong, make you do right.
Okay, final thoughts in 30 seconds. Final thoughts in 30 seconds. Actually, it's probably like 29 seconds now. And when you've had your final thoughts and you've said your final thirds, all eyes will be up here. Okay, all eyes up here in 5, 4, 3, final thoughts in 2, and thank you, final thoughts in 1. Any share outs? Wow, we have a share out right over here, almost like it was planted. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've been talking a lot as a team in Cajon Valley. How do we consistently measure relationships? So how do you really know if kids are connecting and these relationships are there? But on top of that, also, how are we measuring relationships amongst our adults? So how do we know that our adults are connecting, and especially amongst certificated to certificated, but also certificated to classified? And how are we really, first, measuring it? Do we know it's happening? And then second, how are we creating structures in order to build this up and replicate at the place that it is happening?
That was what I walked into over there. I was like, wow, thank you. Okay, we got some chat action.
So I'm going to read on behalf of the chat. So we have Amy, and she was sharing, I appreciate the message that both students and adults can learn from someone who doesn't like them. Relationships matter. And then somebody else shared, as Mandy, when I think about this video and my role, I also believe that adults who are more connected with their leaders and have a relationship will learn and grow more. Somebody else, Amy Conforth, shared, education is a people business. Relationships matter in the important work that we do to support students.
Wow. I mean, that's enough to be said. As we think about the relational piece, you think about the times where you yourself don't have a relationship with someone who's asking you to do something. And it's like, whether they're your boss, whether they're your family member, whomever it might be, it's so much more pleasant and fun. Even when you don't want to do it, you're not even thinking about it. Like, I know that when someone that I have a really deep bond with asks me to do something that I absolutely hate, I'm not even thinking about the fact that I don't even like what that is, because I'm thinking about the relationship that I have with the person. I'm like, I have a relationship with this person. Whatever they need me to do, I got this. And the rest of it goes away. And so that's where we want to start with our kids. We want to start there with our staff. And I don't want to paint the picture that everyone's going to like you, because that's not going to happen, right? And I consider myself one of those personalities. Either you really like me or you really don't. And so sometimes people may not be fond of me, but do they respect me, right? So that's another piece of a relationship. If people respect you, they may not necessarily like some of your personality characteristics. Maybe like, she's loud. She's always laughing. Somebody said that. They're like, she's always happy. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, dang, what you want me to come in like, y'all here again? Professional learning? Yeah, all right. What you here for? Professional learning? All right. I'm like, of course. I love my job. So I'm going to be happy. And so people may not always like care for the fact that you're happy or you're smiling or you're engaging, but they respect you and they respect your work. And so we want to make sure that we're ensuring that we're engaging with our students, with our staff, with our communities, so that they come to a place where they really care about the people that are working with them, and we will make sure that, and they'll engage more. So thank you for that. Anyone else want to share out before we move on? Yes. Wait for the box so that we can have the people in the chat.
We talked about the power of building relationships, but also building relationships for the purpose of achieving goals. Like you build relationships with people because they're people, and you respect humanity and you like everyone, but you also hold people to high expectations in relationships. Because I think if we do it with adults, then adults can do it with students. But if you think because you and your principal are friends, you don't have to do what it is that she's asking you to do, then you don't expect your kids to do it either. And so it's not just building relationships like we're going traveling together or whatever, but we're building respectful relationships that say, I honor the person you are and your position, and I honor the work we have to do as well. So I just think that's powerful as well.
That is powerful, and you said something that I really should point out too, and that would be that we're building that relationship, and I don't know if you use the word rigor, but I think that's where you're going with. You know, we have to ensure that as we're building relationships, that we have high expectations for our staff and for our students. And I'm guilty, I'll say in my early years, if the students couldn't, they just couldn't. I'll say that again. If they couldn't, they just couldn't. How do you guys feel about that? You didn't like it? Okay, thank you. Thank you for calling me out. Because if it weren't for you calling me out, I might be like, oh, you can't. Sorry, you can't. You don't have to today. Thank you. Yes, so we're holding those high expectations, and I'm being transparent and being vulnerable to say that early in my career, if they couldn't, they couldn't. That's not acceptable for our kids. If someone looked at me and said, oh, she can't, so I'm not going to ask her to, I wouldn't be here today because I can't. So we have to hold high expectations. So thank you for bringing that out. Really appreciate that. Now we dig in a little more, and we talk about best practices. And we're not only talking about best practices in the classroom, but we're talking about best practices as leaders, leadership on campuses, in the district office, at the county office, at the state office, in the political office, wherever we are, we're looking at best practices for student success, because at the end of the day, that's why we're all here. Even though we have kind of a dual job and we have to put on two hats. We have to work with our staff, then we have to work with our student. Well, that's a couple of hats, because then we have to work with our community and our parents. So, first I want to say, know your students, and that is, we have to work with our teachers and our staff to ensure that they know their students. Using identity charts in the classroom, student inventories, learning tasks connected to students' lived experiences, and this is important, because I don't have some of the same experiences as my students. So I have to figure out what those experiences are, and I have to make sure that the students see that in the curriculum, because if I don't, they don't understand the problem, and I'm witness of that. There's some stuff I just don't get because I wasn't raised over there. So if I don't get it, why does that mean that I'm not as smart? So we have to make sure that we have their lived experiences so that they can understand the concepts. Also, passion blogging, movies, podcasts, digital newspapers. This is a digital day. That's uncomfortable for me a little bit, but I have to learn about it so that our students are engaged in the process. Icebreakers and games and accolades. But I also say, know your staff. So as we talk about your 2 hats, your 3 hats, your 4 hats, know your staff, making sure that you listen to understand with empathy. And I'm gonna tell y'all a secret. I hope it stays here. Y'all listening? I am not always empathetic. My boss is gone, but I am not always empathetic. So what I have to do is I have to be intentional. I'm just telling you guys, maybe all of you guys are always empathetic and you always feel, I'm not. So what I do on purpose is I listen and I say, let me see how I can feel what they're feeling, and let me be intentional about understanding what's going on with this person, because I'm not wired like that. Is that okay that I'm not wired like that? It is okay. And it's okay if you're not wired like that either, but what are you gonna do about that? Right? And so that's what we have to do, and that's what we have to model for our staff. So when a staff member comes in late because something happened, it's catastrophe at home, I have to remind myself that they're human. And I'll tell you a quick story. When sometimes I teach at the university too, and so when I first started teaching at Cal State, way in San Bernardino, I was engaging with my students online, they have the Canvas and all this, and so you can kind of engage early on. We're exchanging photos and videos and laughter and notes. And then I was 15 minutes late to class on the first day. The students thought I died, first of all. They were like texting, paging, calling. They sent a pigeon or something to try to find me because they saw that I was, and I was enraged because I was like, how am I late on the first day? So what happened was I had a blowout on the freeway, and my husband was trying to get to me. He was like, where are you? I was like, I don't know, I'm right here, come get me. And so I was freaking out over the fact that I was gonna be late because I don't wanna say I'm a perfectionist because I'm not, but I don't like late. And so for me to be late on the first day was really hard. And so that moment, that reminded me that there may be some students that are gonna be late sometimes, and the way I would normally react, I'd usually be like, no, I get it. Yeah, no, you were late. Mm-hmm. Just make sure you're on time. This is really important. It was a reminder. It was a reminder that I have to be empathetic and that sometimes things happen, and even to those of us who are never late. So be empathetic, listen with empathy, show genuine interest, and that's what we do. I usually am one who can show genuine interest, but some of you guys are not genuinely interested. I mean, you can pretend, you can pretend if you want to, but you're really not genuinely interested. You have to practice that muscle. You have to practice it. And it's important because people deserve that. You're also gonna want to be authentic and vulnerable. Sometimes being vulnerable, just showing them that you're a person, helps them to understand that they can show their kids that they can be vulnerable and that they're a person. Have lunch with your staff. Maybe all at once if you choose to, or maybe one-on-one, just to give them an opportunity to kind of listen. So this is how we're building our rapport. Provide coaching and mentorship. And what does that look like? Provide coaching and mentorship so that our teachers and our staff are doing that for our students. And then recognize educators for their contribution. But not just recognize them, how do they want to be recognized? For me, I engage differently. So the nice pat on the back and the great job, I'm like, great job what? I need something else. I really just need you to let me do my work. I need you to let me learn, and I need you to let me grow. That's how you recognize me. How do you recognize your staff? Recognize them in the way they deserve to, that they want that, and those are some of the things that we can do to continue to build that rapport. And then embrace the system of feedback. We leaders, I'm pointing to myself, we leaders, we don't like feedback. Don't tell me I'm not good at what I'm doing, because I'm already good. I am the best at what I do. And when you tell me I'm not, now I'm mad. Embrace that feedback. If someone gives you that feedback, allow for that to resonate with us so that we can understand that we too can grow with their feedback. So these are just some of the things that we do to ensure that we engage. Gonna go through this really quickly because we have other stuff that's super, super important too, but I just wanted to engage with you all. But research, and you should have the slides, but research, and I'll let you all read that, but when we talk about culturally and sustaining education, looking at what that looks like in the classroom on campus so that we're sustaining equitable practices on campus, but looking at it from a cultural and linguistic lens. And also more research, the competencies for culturally responsive teachers, recognizing and redressing bias. And I wanted to start with that one because I reminded us that we all have them. If we don't look at that, then it's harder for us to get through to understand what we need to do best for our students, draw on their culture to shape the curriculum and instruction. And I'm gonna go a little bit faster because I wanna talk a teeny bit about ethnic studies, just to kind of get your feet wet in ethnic studies and so that you can ask more questions. And then I'm going to ask the question, but we're not gonna turn and talk. And I apologize, I know we love to talk, but we're running out of time. But how might educators define culturally responsiveness? And I'm just gonna show you really quickly, and if you wanna take it down, you probably have it on the slides. Just some educators that define it. And so we have Gloria Latson-Billings, who defined culturally relevant pedagogy. And I'm not gonna read it to you just because I know that you have it on the screen. But we also have Geneva Gay, who defined culturally responsive teaching. And so these are the things that you can find in your slides. Also, Shiraki Holly, he defines cultural and linguistic responsiveness. So these are some resources that you can use as you go forward and look at what's culturally responsive for our students and our staff. It's good for students and staff. In addition to that, Zaretta Hammond, where she talks about the warm demander, right? Where are you as a warm demander? Are you a warm demander? Where are you? So you can take a look at that slide to find out what is this culturally and linguistically responsive teaching and engagement for our students, which also works for staff too. And then Goldie Muhammad with her Cultivating Genius book. And so these are just a few resources that you could take a look at when you talk about culturally and linguistically responsive strategies and literacy. We're gonna move past this, but think about the question that you can ask your staff: how might educators create lessons that are inclusive with students' lived experiences? And this is the second time that we talked about students and their lived experiences. So we wanna make sure that that's something that's really connected into as we move forward. And then what opportunities exist in school systems for students to participate as co-creators? I'm gonna pause there because I want us to hear co-creators, and it's hard because we wanna create. We think about the things that we do for students instead of with students, so we want to make sure that we are co-creators with our students in their own learning environment. What does that look like? What type of tools are we using, and how do we foster that on our school settings so that we can have our teachers that are working with students as they create lesson plans with students as co-creators? So, when I spoke about culture and linguistically responsive strategies, it brought me to ethnic studies. And this is not directly connected to the Equity Blueprint for Action, but this is what kind of it leads to when we talk about ethnic studies. So what I really wanted to do in this group is really just to kind of put it on your radar. So I'm not gonna bore you with the rest of the ethnic studies talk, but I do wanna invite you to, I'll put my information up, to connect with me if you're interested in more information on ethnic studies and what's happening in the county We have Julie Goldman that's here that's been strategic in this county specifically, who has been really just really put boots on the ground, doing the work with the teachers, and ensuring that there are practices in the classrooms for ethnic studies. So we can answer any questions, but it's directly connected to culturally and linguistically responsive instruction and student agency and voice, and that's directly connected to our blueprint for action. In your slides, you'll see that there is a definition for ethnic studies that you can take a look at and read through. The last thing that I want to tell you all is that ethnic studies is going to be a graduation requirement as of 25-26, if you have not already heard. 25-26, and schools and districts need to start to implement, they need to start to implement as of 25-26, and it will be a graduation requirement as of 29-30. So if you haven't heard that, that'll be the information that we'll get out to you all. So as we move forward, I'm going to turn this back over to Shannon Baker. Thank you all for your time. I know the last part of it went kind of fast, but I want to make sure that we don't miss some of the other important information that we have in the room. So thank you all for your time, your energy, and your engagement. Have a great day today. Thank you.
You know, the lovely thing is this isn't the only meeting we have. We have many more meetings throughout the year. So some of the things that Talisa didn't get to go as deep in with specifically around culturally and linguistically responsive instruction, we can bring that back, because I think it is really important for us to look at the research, look at the best practices, look at the ideas that are out there, and have conversations ongoing throughout the year. So we will keep Dr. Sullivan in coming back to our meetings to go deeper into those areas. So that's a great thing. So I'm so glad that she was here so that you could meet her, and I've just had such an enjoyable time working with her so far this year, and now you've got to see her. So thank you for being here and for sharing your wisdom and knowledge. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a toe dip into this to kind of whet your appetite for the year upcoming. I think that a lot of words get thrown around in education, things like learning loss and learning acceleration, and okay, we got our scores, how do we do unfinished learning? I mean, so we have all these terms, right, about kids coming back from a pandemic, and how are we going to support them? So one of the threads for our learning this year will be focused on learning acceleration, and I'm just gonna do a little overview because our county office received a learning acceleration grant from CCEE this year, and at our first professional learning network, Linda Darling-Hammond, who's the president of the state board, came to our meeting, and she really wanted us to think about learning acceleration in a specific way, and that is from not a deficit. And so I'm going to share a few of the slides that she shared with us so that you can see how the state board and how Dr. Darling-Hammond is thinking about this terminology about learning acceleration. And then I will also share with you how this is going to play out in our meetings this year. So there has been an impact due to all the pandemic on learning, right? We know that kids were isolated, some experienced trauma. There was some lost instructional time with kids coming back and forth from in-person learning to virtual learning. There was some decreased engagement for many students because they did feel that isolation. And then there were some gaps that were created, not only academically, but with life circumstances. Kids went through a lot. There were family members that were ill, there were things that happened financially. So it's not just about school, it's really about the impact on the whole child. So that we know is true. But the idea is that we need to restart and reinvent, not go backwards to the way it was like when people say, well, we'll just get back to normal. But in reality, normal didn't work for everyone in the first place. I mean, when you think about kids, there were kids still not making it before the pandemic happened. So the idea here is that it's the time to see that something can be different, and that's scary, because a lot of times it can put you back on your heels a little bit if you try to make real change. But in the end, you propel more forward faster because of that you're trying something new and you're making sure that all students are engaged, and that we can create a more positive space for students. This is a document that's linked in the slides. It's from the Learning Policy Institute, and it's called Restarting and Reinventing School, so I did link that in there for you. But the idea is that the schools that were developed in the early 1900s, they were not designed to support relationship building. They were not. 21st century skills, that was way out of the realm of their thinking at the time because they were in the early 1900s. Flexible supports for students, not there. And then time for teacher collaboration. Teachers were in their classroom, they didn't collaborate. We're trying to change that now. And then equitable achievement was not the goal. I think if you go back and you think about how school was designed, it was perfectly okay for some students to not make it, right? And so that is why we are trying to think about how we can get out of that mindset and support some systemic change, and that's where the learning acceleration piece comes into play. Dr. Sullivan talked about relationships. So when we're talking about the science of learning and development, this is where we're headed now. Children constructing knowledge, not just having knowledge given to them. Learning is social, emotional, and academic. I think we've done a lot of thinking around what that looks like in incorporating social emotional learning into our curriculum. Learning is accelerated by physical activity, engagement, interaction, inquiry, and joy. Joy, love it. Thank you, I totally agree. How do we make a classroom a joyful place to be? And then students' perceptions of their own ability influence their learning. If they don't believe that they can learn, if they don't believe they can be successful, they are not going to be successful in the classroom. So our job not only is to teach them, but also to make sure that they have this perception of their own ability that they can learn in anything that's put in front of them. This is one of my favorite quotes from the Accelerating Learning as We Build Back Better. If we only focus on learning loss, we will walk down a familiar road, one paved with repetitive remediation, disengaged students, and reluctant families who are disillusioned with impersonal, inauthentic learning. So I don't use that term learning loss. Students are what they are. They come to the class, they know a lot. They know a lot. And so it's our job to teach them where they need to go. So if we take it from a deficit mindset right up front, we're never gonna get to where we wanna go. So that term is not something that, so when I read news articles, and there's gonna be a lot more that come out about learning loss, I put that on the back burner and I say, we are the students that walk in the door, they're brilliant, they come with what they come with, and we move them forward. And that's what we do as educators. I really think I love this idea, the idea that virtually all students are motivated to learn the next thing they're ready to learn when they experience encouragement, supportive relationships, and evidence of progress. Basically, I think we all know this, you can't motivate a student by labeling them as low, behind, below average, whatever label you want to put on a child. That is not going to move them forward. And so that's another thing we've been really thinking about is how do we not have deficit language labels that we put on students by grouping them into the red category, or you're below basic, or you're less than proficient, or you're, all of those things. We may say them as adults, but kids hear them, they know. And so that's the idea of acceleration, making a positive spin, and going from an assets-based mindset. I'm going to take a second and I'm going to have you read this slide. This is from Carnegie. I just read a long white paper from them on the concept of accelerated learning. And they created this, what it is and what it isn't when we think about accelerated learning. So take about a moment and I want you to just read what's on the slide. I'm going to ask you to talk for just a couple of minutes about what you're noticing on either side and what stands out to you. So let's take about 2 minutes at your table and just share for a second, what is something that's standing out to you as you look at this comparison that the Carnegie Corporation has put forward around what it is and what it isn't. And I'll encourage those on the chat to also engage to see what they have to say about accelerated learning. So go ahead and have that conversation. Take about 30 more seconds, and then we'll hopefully have a little bit of sharing. Okay, let's come back together. I'm going to have I'm going to make Steve run. No. Erin was monitoring the chat, and so she has a couple of comments from our colleagues who aren't in the room.
Yes, so we had one from Amy. It said, on the left, I appreciate meaningful problems and projects and access to grade level content.
Thank you. Can I have someone in the room? Anything that came up in your conversation about comparing the two? And the article, the post from Carnegie is linked in the bottom of the slides.
I don't think it's anything new. I think it's something that we've learned looking at the standards is about, identifying the most efficient, the most effective, the highest priority. So, I'm new to California. I'm from New York, but there were always those areas that were that should be the most. I'm drawing a blank on the term, but there's always things that are going to be the most important, and it's about working smarter, not harder. What's going to help them with the next standard? What's going to help them with the next unit? Really prioritize for your children. Make those smart choices. Empowering our teachers to make those decisions, because you're never going to fit at cramming 2 years of instruction into one. What do your students truly need, and how can you get there the most efficiently?
Thank you for that. I think I think my favorite one is the second to the last bullet on the left, assuming all students can learn literally anything with the right instruction and support. And so when you look at that left column, there's things we can do and then things we have to think, that belief system. That's really, really critical because kids need both. They need their teachers to believe in them, and then they need to have all these pieces in place with the right curriculum and the right instruction along the way. So this is something this is going to be our guiding question for the year. How are you accelerating learning in your school or district? And so what is that going to look like? So for future meetings, we are going to talk about some presentations on accelerated learning strategies. We're going to talk about the concept of deeper learning, which was mentioned in the previous slide. We're going to talk about UDL and how by designing to the edges, we can meet the needs of the most students. We're going to talk about a strategic visioning process that some of our districts are going through this year that is helping guide or create a North Star for them in terms of where they want their students to go after they graduate or leave their system. and some best practices for expanded learning and individualized student supports. We have some grants that we're working on that we have found some real success on a small scale with a few districts, and so I'm going to share some of the things that we've been doing that we can utilize more broadly across the county and with more districts and schools. And then the final part, which I'm going to have put in your brain, is there are great things that are happening right now in schools, in districts to help accelerate learning. So we want to know innovative ideas that are happening out there, best practices that are already in place that you're seeing success with, because we want to hear from you as to what might be going well so that it's not just myself or our team sharing, but it's coming from the field so that we can learn from each other. So that's what the year is going to look like. And so I put this question down here. Is there an accelerated learning strategy or practice that you would like to share with our group? So I'm just putting it in the universe and for you to think about so that as we go forward in the year, there'll be some things that you can share along the way. I did put some additional resources on this slide. If you want to know more about the Restarting and Reinventing School pieces here, there's some economic research on tutoring that's there. So please take a look at all of those, and then all the other documents that I referenced are also linked within the slides. So you have a plethora of things to look through as we're thinking about this idea of accelerated learning. So I appreciate you giving me a chance to give you a toe dip into this idea, knowing that we will go deeper with more specific strategies, like I mentioned on the previous slide, throughout all the meetings this year. And we'll hopefully hear from some of you as well. Okay, so we have a couple more things to share. Steve has been wonderful walking around with the box, but now he's going to be the person sharing to talk some more about the best part of the day, LCAP and accountability. I know you're excited.
Well, thanks for the build-up. You really took that video we saw earlier to heart. You're building me up. So thank you for being here. Just real quickly, a couple announcements we want to make sure folks are aware of. And one is the CASP results were released to school districts so that they can do their embargoed preview. The note we wanted to kind of mention is typically these data are publicly released sometime late September, early October, and that goes on the public reporting website. This year, that website won't go live. It will happen in conjunction with the dashboard. So we had a lot of folks just reaching out to us to say, that's what we heard, but is that correct? Because that's not how it's been in the past. I just want to reinforce that message. That is correct. So the data are available to you to use, though, and it doesn't mean that it can't be shared at board meetings or with your staffs and that it can't be utilized. So what CDE is basically asking folks to do is not make big public announcements or go talk to the media, but do share with your boards, speak with your school staffs, whomever you're engaging with around the data. It's totally appropriate to do that. There just won't be the public release of the data until the dashboard's released. So operationally, what that will look like is the CASP reporting website and the LPAC reporting websites that are typically public that are separate from the dashboard, that will be made public at the same time that the California School Dashboard will be made public. So this isn't new information. We just want to make sure that that message is understood because we've been receiving a lot of phone calls around that one. And then in terms of LCAP support, I recognize some faces. You were on with us this morning, but we kicked off our Putting It All Together sessions today with our very first one. And we had a guest speaker, Lachey Collins, our community engagement specialist, and she talked about engaging educational partners. That was recorded. We'll put that up on our LCAP website and send it out through our listservs too to let everyone know. So if you are interested and you weren't part of that today, you will have access to that and the slides. And then on October 11th is our next one, and the focus is on supporting our English learners, and Tony Mora will be our featured presenter on that one. So we are up and running with the LCAP support for the 22-23 school year. And in addition, there's a lot of turnover in districts, a lot of new faces. So we want to make sure that we let you know too about our other workshops in our newsletter. So kind of our LCAP 101s for people who might be new or leading the process. These are more technical in nature. Putting it all together is more an expansive view and kind of getting into best practices. The workshops are really a focus on the more technical aspects and specific things that have to happen. So the dates are listed there. October 5th is our, we're going to do LCAP 101s 2 different times. There's a 9 to 10 in the morning, 2:30 to 10, or 2:30 to 3:30, excuse me. Those will be recorded as well, and we'll make sure that the information is sent out to you if you're on our listserv. And to make sure you are, there's a sign-up link there in the slides to make sure that you're getting all this information. So if you oversee the LCAP process or you're part of that and would like to be included, especially for folks who are new, if you've already been on it, you're already in our listservs, and we just roll you over. And that's it. Those are the key updates.
We do
Oh,
have a
question. Yes.
The question is, when is the anticipated release date for the dashboard?
So typically, we don't have an exact date from CDE. What they said is it will be later this year. So from past practice, that typically means we get a preview in mid to late November, and then the dashboard in the past has typically gone live in December, pretty close to that winter break. So that's how it's been in the past. We're assuming that that is going to be the same. We know it will be before the end of the calendar year, but we don't have an exact date certain. That's it. Thank you.
Dr. Dare has also been serving as our chat moderator, so she has also been monitoring the chat. But now she's going to speak to us. So Dr. Dare has joined the Curriculum and Instruction Department as a Senior Director of Child and Family Success. We're so excited that she's on the team. So she's going to be really supporting our pre-K through 3 initiative, also MTSS, and lots of other things. So she's just going to share with you an educator pathway. So just a couple of minutes on an update on this from pre-K through 3. So Dr. Dare.
Thank you, Shannon, and I promise I'll be quick. I just wanted to share, if you haven't heard already, we had approximately 49 schools join a consortium with their Early Educator Teacher Development Grant, and so some of you in the room are part of that consortium. We were awarded approximately $6.2 million. I'm 48 LEAs and charters, my apology. And the two goals that we have for the consortium is going to be to build the workforce pipeline and provide professional development. And it's really centered around building that pipeline for CSPP, so the California State Preschool Program, the TK and K teachers. So if you have any questions or if you haven't received contact from our lead, which is Dr. Shive Jones, please feel free to jot down her email. I know she's happy to answer any questions that you might have. Information about this grant is forthcoming, but we just wanted to let you know in case you haven't received information from her. The next piece is that if you are in a system that is offering TK, we did want to share that we do have a TK early educators teacher pathway. So it's for multiple subject teachers who currently hold a multiple subject credential and are looking to gain some credits. And so this particular, there's different ways that you can go about gaining the credits, because you need to have 24 ECE credits along with your multiple subject credential. So the SDCOE department is going to be offering an option 2 here, and so we partnered up with USD, and so we'll be offering 12 semester units that go towards towards this particular child development site supervisor permit. So with that, you also have to have, so most multiple subject teachers have supervised field experience, so for example, student teaching, and so that counts as some credit, plus you would earn the 12 semester units in coursework, and that would issue you a child development site supervisor's permit. With that option, they have to renew it every 5 years, but there's a lot of, I know there's a lot of schools and districts that are offering it for their teachers because it is a nice way for them to build up that pipeline. Also, if you have teachers that need early education credits, they can also look at some of our other options that we have here, and I highly suggest that if you want to see what some of our pathways are, you can go to our SDCOE website, and there's many different pathways that you can look at. So I talked briefly about that. I'm kind of going through here quickly. If you'd like more information on it, we do have the contact information, the TK Pathway team. And so just to kind of give you an idea of what the cost is, we at SDCO, at part of our grant funding, we're going to cover the cost of all textbooks and licenses for the Canvas portal, and also for the instructors and the courses. And it will offset the cost of the facilitators. What we're asking them to do to get the credits is that they will apply through the USD program, and it's $79 per unit for a total cost of $474 per semester. So again, if you have any questions, you can contact the Pathway team. Also, there's some informational sessions here that I've listed. If you click on the OMS links, you can register for those informational sessions. So I know it was really fast, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I think my email is on that slide deck, and I'll hand it over to Shannon.
Okay. All right. So that is going to bring our meeting to a close. So I would like to thank those of you that are here in person for joining us, for engaging in the conversation, networking with each other, and I'd also like to thank the people that were on the virtual option, because we had a couple of little glitches with sound in a couple places, and everyone was just so full of grace, and we just all worked it out behind the scenes. So I appreciate all of you being here. Our next meeting is October 25th. That's going to be a virtual meeting. I am going to send out a survey to see how we want to work, if you like the hybrid option, if you'd rather be all virtual. So I'm going to get some feeling out from the group to see how we want to build the next meetings, but the one in October will be virtual until we sort of figure out how we're going to do things. You can see there's a box that's blank. It has coming soon. Later in the year, we'd like to talk with some of you about coming to visit. We did this before the COVID shutdown, and it was a really great experience to get out to places that are doing great things, to actually see things in action in the classroom. So we'd like to get back to that later in the year. So that'll be something we'll talk about at future meetings. Again, appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week or month, and we appreciate you. Thank you.